Good afternoon. I'm David Crabtree. We're about to hear a second news conference within the past half hour. This one coming in Chapel Hill from the office of Attorney Rob Maitland. He is with the wife of the suspect in this case of the shootings yesterday in Chapel Hill, Karen Haggerty, the wife of Craig Hicks. Let's listen in.
To represent her in the incident last night here in Chapel Hill involving her husband, Craig Hicks. Ms. Hicks here is going to make a statement, and she will answer some questions, a handful of questions. Please understand that the investigation is ongoing, and so we are limited to what we can say, but there are a few important points that Mrs. Hicks would like to make.
Like, first of all, I want to express my deepest sympathy and condolences for the victims. Like everyone else, I was just completely shocked that this had happened. While the official investigation is still ongoing, I am cooperating with the authorities and intend to provide whatever information and assistance I can provide to them. While I am unable to comment fully on the matter, I can say with my absolute belief that this incident had nothing to do with religion or victims' faith, but in fact was related to the long-standing parking disputes that my husband had with the neighbors. And our neighbors are various religions, races, and creeds. At this point, I do humbly ask that everybody focus on the victim and their families, and please grant us privacy during this difficult time.
Could you come just a little closer to the microphone, ma'am? We're having a hard time.
I'm sorry.
But we could bring them closer to you if that would help.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Hicks has had some recent surgery on her ankle, but unrelated to this incident.
And it's Karen with a K, right?
Okay.
Mrs. Hicks, he is in his deficiency affidavit listed no income for himself. Have there been money problems recently?
I was going to say I work full-time, and he was going to school full-time. That was his job. He was enrolled in a paralegal program at Durham Tech and was due to graduate this May.
Can you tell us more about him, about his studies, what he was like?
I was going to say, he was in a paralegal program.
And what kind of paralegal studies was he doing?
He had a lot of different things he was interested in. I don't think he had focused down onto one area that he really wanted to. He was still deciding that.
How can you say it had nothing to do with religion? Can you tell us how you know that?
We were married for 7 years, and that is one thing that I do know about him. He often champions on his Facebook page for the rights of many individuals, for same-sex marriages, abortion, race. He just believed, and I know that's just one of the things I know about him is everyone is equal. Doesn't matter what you look like or who you are or what you believe. That's one thing I do know about him.
Can you explain how a parking thing could have escalated to this?
Let me address that point.
Yeah.
Mr. Hicks had a long-standing issue in the Finley Forest neighborhood with their parking regulations. He had attempted to address those issues with the homeowners associations on numerous occasions, unsuccessfully, and that is all public record. And that is why Mrs. Hicks believes that this incident was related to the parking. It is a simple matter. It has nothing to do with the religious faith of the victims. It has nothing to do with terrorism. It has nothing to do with anything but the mundane issue of this man being frustrated day in and day out with not being able to park where he wanted to park. And unfortunately, these victims were there at the wrong time at the wrong place. And my personal opinion is that this highlights the importance of access to mental health care services and us removing in our society the stigma for people to ask for that type of help when they need it.
had he had a previous history of mental health issues?
I'm not able to speak to that at this time.
But you kind of opened the door when you said access to mental health. I mean, why would you need access to mental health if he didn't have mental health issues?
Well, obviously, it's not, I would say, normal or within the range of normal behavior for someone to shoot 3 people over parking issues.
And sorry, when you say that you
Just a second. Camera?
When people look at your husband's Facebook page, there's a range. You know, there are funny photos. There's a photo of you all vacationing in Disney. But then there are also photos of his revolver. There are other photos that some people would say are a bit questionable given what's happened. When we look at the things that he's posted, specifically his weapons, how should we interpret that?
Would you like me to help you with this one?
Yeah.
I think from what Mrs. Hicks has told us, that her husband did have a concealed weapons permit. He was lawfully carrying a gun. And he was a champion for Second Amendment rights. He believed strongly in them and the constitutionality behind those. And so I think that's, as far as that goes, what we can say on that issue at this time.
But how should people interpret your husband? The average person, and some of the emails I'm getting are, this guy is crazy. Is that how we should interpret him? Is that the whole story?
After what happened, I would have never expected this. So
I don't think Mrs. Hicks viewed anything that led her to believe that anything like this would ever happen. And so I don't think at this point we can make any further comment, as we're not really aware of what led to this or why this actually happened on his behalf.
As Mrs. Hicks stated in her statement, this was a complete surprise to her. She was aware of her husband's long-standing frustration with the parking issues in their neighborhood. And the importance of this press conference today is to make sure that the message gets out, because in some places the message has been focused solely on the victim's religious beliefs. And the important thing is, and we hope that this press conference brings some relief, some solace to this situation, in that it has nothing to do with the victim's religious beliefs. It had everything to do with a mundane parking spot dispute.
Mrs. Hicks, can you say anything about the attempts he made to get help for his mental health issues and what his mental health issues are?
I'm sorry, we can't speak to that at this time.
That's a question that you said earlier. My name's Tara McCauley, by the way.
Hi, Tara.
From the BBC. And you were saying before that you said, my husband says these things, he believes in people being equal. Can you tell us more about what things he said, or how you know that it's not like him? Or just stuff you remember about him?
I'm having trouble verbalizing. It's almost like you have to trust. It's like you just have to. I know you can't say trust me, but it's just,
this is a very stressful position that we put Mrs. Hicks in, and she had no obligation to hold this press conference today. But her motivation for holding this press conference was to make sure that the message got out that this had nothing to do with the victim's religious beliefs. This had nothing to do in any way with the current climate of terrorism and executions and things like that. And it would be irresponsible for us to not have this press conference today and make sure that that message gets out.
Mr. Maitland, you said made a phrase something about the victims were in the wrong place at the wrong time. How well did Craig Hicks know them, and had they interacted before? Was there a particular dispute between them?
No. At this time, it's our belief that this had nothing to do with any kind of particular relationship with those victims. Mr. Hicks had a problem with many of his neighbors, various neighbors, and it really had nothing to do with any of these particular neighbors.
Are you aware that your husband appeared at the apartment with his sidearm on his side to talk about his parking issue?
I'm sorry, we can't comment on that at this time.
Far prior to today, or yesterday.
We can't comment on this at that time.
What is your relationship with him going forward? Can you talk a little bit about it?
Again, please, we're going to reserve comment on that. Mrs. Hicks is trying to process all of this like we all are, and her only purpose for being here today is, as I stated earlier, to make sure that all aspects of this story are available to the public. Thank you guys very much for coming. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.